Hey everyone, it's John Heath here again for Milton Rose Learning with another Let's Learn video on how to ace Great Gatsby. So we've got a really good writing sesh for this text. So if you are studying this beautiful book, you're in the right place. So we're going to look at unpacking essay questions for Great Gatsby and how to break them down, which is absolutely crucial if you want to get the high marks. Then we'll look at how your teacher is going to mark your Great Gatsby essay in some way. And then we'll just round off by looking at a really nice model paragraph so you can get a really good feel for how to write well on this beautiful book. Okay, so first off, without further ado, unpacking essay questions, everyone. Now, don't be a foolio and start writing straight away. Okay, because if you do, your work will lack depth, you won't be getting into the big ideas and the big themes, and it'll just be a bit of a dog's dinner. Okay, so what we do to guard against that is we break down conceptually every Great Gatsby question that we get given. And here's how you do it. So let's read it first. In The Great Gatsby, Fitzgerald presents a world in which dreams are inevitably corrupted. To what extent do you agree with this view? Okay, so it's quite philosophical. Okay, there's a lot conceptually going on here. So let's break this down. Now, the first concept that we need to worry about in the question is dreams. And a great picture there of F. Scott Fitzgerald, the writer. He looks a bit startled. He was a drinker, to be fair. He kind of drank himself to death, unfortunately. So dreams, then. This is a theme-based question. So Fitzgerald explores both the individual dreams of the characters, such as Gatsby, as we know, but also the broader American dream, which frames the narrative. So it's dreams within dreams, if I can put it that way. The American dream is the overarching one, and then Gatsby's dream within that broader social kind of dream. That's a lot of dreams. But basically, focus on that theme. That's the thematic heart of the question. Then we have the phrase inevitably corrupted. Let's think about that then. Now, the dreams in The Great Gatsby are destroyed ultimately by a restrictive social class system, which is epitomised by Tom Buchanan, bigotry and the selfishness of characters like Daisy. You can't avoid it. You know, these dreams are almost too beautiful for this world, and they just get inevitably corrupted and destroyed. It's quite negative in that sense. Then this is an extent question. So it says, to what extent do you agree? So this phrase calls you to evaluate and weigh up both sides of the argument. Be sure to put why you agree and why you don't agree. Okay, and then weigh it up at the end. So it is like the weighing scales. Okay, put the evidence in both sides and then take it from there. That gives you a little hint about the essay structure that you should probably follow for this one. Okay, so that's very important that you unpack the question. Very, very important that you do that first. Then the second thing is, like we normally do in these videos, we ask, well, how does your teacher mark your Great Gatsby work? So it's all about assessment objectives. They never mark your work blind, I promise. And the assessment objectives, they change from year to year and they change on the exam boards. So what we've done here is we've just given you 4 of the main things that you need to do for assessment objectives to get the marks on Great Gatsby. So number 1, we have academic expression. So you got to write well. Basically, write clearly, formally, no slang, spelling, punctuation and grammar needs to be on point. Make sure you punctuate your work. Make sure you put the dreaded commas in, because I have marked work without any commas in once, and that was a challenge. So it all comes under academic expression. Try as well to use literary terminology, symbolism, simile, metaphor, hyperbole, pathetic fallacy. All of those terms as well would help you to hit AO1, which is academic expression on most exam specs. Number 2, detailed analysis. So make sure you're zooming in on quotations. Word level analysis and phrase level analysis is always the best for me. I always think it gives that extra level of precision. Explore the writer's methods as well. Look at language and its impact, its emotional impact on the reader, but also try and look at structure as well. So, for instance, a structural technique that's used in this narrative is the use of the green light. So, the green light that shines on Daisy's docks, it's constantly there. It's always shining, and it crops up multiple times. It becomes a motif. So, you could argue that it's used to structure Gatsby's moral progression throughout the kind of text. So do look for structural elements as well for detailed analysis, not just language. Number 3, they will ask you, or they'll want you to get into the big ideas and themes. Okay, don't talk about these characters like they're real, because they're not real people. They're just literary constructs to enable Fitzgerald to explore big ideas and themes, such as morality, such as the American dream, such as the nature of power and gendered power. Try and link whatever you're analysing in the text, link it then to the big ideas. Okay, and the big idea in our question today is dreams, so we would obviously want to link it to the American dream and things like that. Okay, if you want to get the high marks. Then the last thing is context, which is all the history and social kind of elements that were happening at the time. So you want to kind of know your history a little bit. It's written in the 1920s when America was really changing. It was going through a lot of changes. But remember, as I always say, don't just lump it in. Don't just throw in context and expect to get the marks, because you won't. You've got to use the context and then link it to the text. Okay. If you don't, you're going to have problems. Okay, so you have to learn a bit of context and put it in, and then link it to Gatsby, link it to dreams for today's lesson at least. Okay, so that's how your work will be marked broadly. I'm being very broad brush there, but it is how your work is marked. Now let's look and finish by looking at a really good model paragraph. Okay, so let's have a little read in my brummy tones. Okay, and then we will look at how it hits the different assessment objectives. Gatsby's dream is the clearest example of one that becomes inevitably corrupted. His pursuit of Daisy is not simply about love, but about reclaiming a perfect imagined past. His belief that one can repeat the past reveals his refusal to accept reality. The green light at the end of Daisy's dock symbolises this dream, close, glowing, and yet unreachable. Fitzgerald described Gatsby's dream as already behind him, suggesting that the dream was doomed from the start, built on illusion rather than truth. Even when Gatsby achieves wealth, it is through criminal means, and he remains socially inferior to the established elite. His tragic end reflects the destruction of his dream, not because it was unworthy, but because the society around him was incapable of sustaining it. Okay, very stylishly answered, I gotta say. It's very, very good. But how does it hit these AOs? Well, let's just have a little talk about it. AO1 is academic expression. So it's formal and fluent, like doomed from the start, built on illusion rather than truth. That's high level conceptual language. It does use literary terms like symbolization or symbolism, I think it is, combined with just nice expression, tragic end, corrupted. It's clearly analytical and clearly kind of written with some style and verve. AO2, language and structure analysis. There's a really good close reading of the quote, repeat the past. So that's unpacked to show Gatsby's delusions. The symbolism of the green light is teased out quite nicely. I thought that was done pretty well. And already behind him, insightfully links to inevitability of failure, which is an implicit and implied structural point. Okay, doesn't always have to be explicit. Sometimes it can be implicitly done. Big ideas and themes. Well, it grapples with the theme of dream versus reality. It explores the corruption of the American dream by wealth and class. Again, implied, but it's kind of done quite nicely. So it is teasing out those big ideas and themes. Okay. And lastly, contextual understanding is quite good as well. So it's implicit, but it's a critique of 1920s materialism and class divisions, because it mentions the elitism. Fits into the wider context of the American dream and its distortion in capitalist culture. Okay, so it's done quite nicely. It's implicit, some of this stuff, but it's not always going to be explicitly stated, because otherwise you're going to sound a bit like AI. Sometimes we can argue and hit these in an implied way as well. That's absolutely fine as long as it's done. So hopefully you found that kind of quite useful for A Great Gatsby. Just to recap, always break down the question like we did at the start of this session. Okay, always do that. For the assessment objectives, do ask your teacher to give you the mark scheme before you start writing. I think that's your teacher, I'm sure, would print that off for you so you know the rules of the game before you start writing. And then have a look and just refer back to our model paragraph, because that will give you a little bit of a sense of how this should sound when you're writing. Okay. So don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and tap the bell icon to never miss another Let's Learn video again. Share it with all your friends, of course, and feel free to leave us any comments in the comments box. We'll always reply on YouTube. And it just remains to say, hopefully you've had a bit of fun there. That was, I really enjoyed that kind of session. And yeah, good luck with the studies and take care. We'll see you soon.